I think we have a privilege of seeing with our own eyes the words of the book materializing and becoming a reality. In the history of mankind, there has never been a nation that has left its homeland and returned to its homeland. Not after 2,000 years.
In 1916, when my grandfather first moved to Israel, there were 60,000 Jews in Israel. Exactly 100 years later, there are over 6 million. Never in the world has there been a population explosion from 60,000 to 6 million as we've seen here in the land of Israel. It's unprecedented. Something is happening of historic proportions.
The world's actually constantly going through changes, but I think we're experiencing a hyper switch. Something's moving quicker.
We're living in times of prophecy. It says, I will bring you in from the four corners of the earth, and people will know that you are my people and that I am your God.
Here we see something so epic, so huge, so historic, promised in the Bible.
It's something that people couldn't have imagined 50 years ago.
God says in Jeremiah, no more am I going to be known as a God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. I'm going to be known as a God who brought you out of the land of the north and the other countries. And when he brought back the people from the land of the north, from Russia, he was saying something else. He's saying, no more am I going to be known as the God of history. I'm going to be known as the God of now. Open up your eyes, watch it happening. I'm on the move.
There are more Jews studying the Bible today than ever before in Israel's history. Every single promise is now coming to pass in our lifetime. And what that does is it inspires people to want to be a part of it. They feel a calling in their life to say, if God is with Israel, then either I'm moving to Israel or I'm standing with Israel. I'm helping Israel. I'm supporting Israel. I want to be a part of that.
Some truly feel I have the opportunity to be part of what God is doing in this land. And that doesn't only mean Jews. That means those that stand with God wherever they are.
When Isaiah said that all the nations will be streaming like water to the Temple Mount, he was talking about you, from Missouri, from Washington, from California, from Brazil, from Tunisia, from Indonesia. So if you want to connect to the essence of the whole thing, the place where God chose to lay his divine presence, you got it. This is it.
With the dawn of each new day, life is returning to the land of the Bible. And around the world, millions of believers are feeling drawn to this place. Now is the time to chart your own journey, to discover for yourself the miracle of the land and the courageous hearts of the people of Israel.
I am Israel.
I am Israel.
I am Israel.
I am
Israel. I am Israel.
I am Israel. I am Israel.
In all of the world, there is but one city where the God of the Bible promised his eyes and his heart will always be Jerusalem. Established by King David as Israel's eternal capital and revered throughout history as the spiritual heart of the world, Jerusalem has been the focus of more conflict and more joy than any other city in history. Since 1967, Jewish men and women have been allowed to freely live and work in the old city of their fathers. One of these women is Daniela Avraham.
I love working as a tour guide, especially here in Jerusalem, but in general, all over Israel. I think that Jerusalem is so welcoming and so inviting and just wants everyone to come and see and connect and feel that they're a part of it as well.
Beneath the busy streets, a treasure trove of discoveries laid quietly for centuries. But today, archaeologists are uncovering the remains of the original city that was ancient Jerusalem. The city of David. The palace where David played his harp and wrote his psalms. The homes where families lived during the times of the kings. The road on which Jesus walked on his way to the temple.
I love the feeling, I love the experience of bringing people around the land of Israel and to take them around and to show them this is where this happens and this is where that happens, and to have it come to life in front of your very eyes. And it does something. Everyone is moved in some way. My grandfather is a Holocaust survivor. He always used to tell the story about how during the war, he spent his time during the Holocaust in different work camps together with his father. There's 2 special days of the year which you end up saying the same wish or the same prayer, the same hope and dream. At the end of the Passover Seder and at the end of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. L'shana haba'a b'Yerushalayim habnuya. Next year in a rebuilt Jerusalem. And my grandfather very much took this with him after the war. He found a safe place in the United States. He raised his family, he raised his son, my father. Finally, when I was 7 years old, we made Aliyah. We moved from New York to live in Beit Shemesh, to live here in the land of Israel. And I've grown up here ever since. It made us grow up very differently. Whereas friends or relatives who lived abroad, they would grow up, let's say, as young girls, we would be talking about, hair and makeup and boys and shoes and clothing. And also here in Israel, we'd be walking around talking about hair and makeup and shoes and clothing, and we'd be talking more about the meaning of life and what it means to sacrifice and to give, and what does life mean, what does death mean, what are we willing to give our lives for. I think it gave us something a lot deeper and a lot more meaningful as part of our personalities. My hope for myself as a guide is that every person will take something from the tour home with them, some sort of realization, some sort of understanding. I think there's a reason that the Bible is still, #1 on the bestseller list, where everyone has something to learn from it, where the stories till this day are so relevant.
The original source of life for the city of Jerusalem was the Gihon Spring. It was next to this spring that the kings of Judah, such as Solomon, were anointed.
One of the most amazing things about this spring, being the source of life, it is also the first place that people would come when they would come visit the city of Jerusalem. You would immerse yourself in the water, what's called in Hebrew a mikveh. You would cleanse your soul, and only then, when you're clean and you're pure, are you ready to go visit the house of God. We have people from all over the world who come to visit, who come to see, who come to walk through the water, to touch, to feel, which brings to mind the prophecy, because my house will be called a house of prayer for all nations. And we see with all of the nations of the world coming to visit both this spring and Jerusalem itself, we almost see the prophecy coming true. Every stone has a story that it wants to tell. And Jerusalem wants to share that story. It wants to share that story with everyone. And everyone's welcome to come see, to come experience, and to come to connect to the stories, to the history, and to the land. I think I'm privileged to have grown up in a land where my grandfather, where his parents, where his forefathers only dreamed of living one day, of seeing built one day. This is home, and home is where you want to be. I'm Daniela Abraham, and I am Israel.
High in the Golan Heights, a cattle drive is underway, steered by a team of Israeli cowboys. Israel's remote northernmost region offers the most fertile soil in the country, ideal for farming and raising cattle. Young men come here with dreams of carving out a life for themselves through working the land. Men like Jonathan Rosenberg.
My connection to the land, for me as a Jewish person, it's sort of a homing beacon. First time I came out here, all the things that I learned in the Torah, it all clicked together. I came to Israel my first time when I was 19 to go find myself per se, and also find out, all about the land. Always wanting to go to the army, but wanted my mom's grace to go. Until 25, I was back and forth to Israel, America, until my mom gave the okay to go. I came out 26, joined up. A real big thing that got me in defending the Jewish nation was we have less people than most armies, but because of people's love for this nation, they fight with such more passion. We're not going out on the offensive to go and attack other people. If we get attacked, we're going out. So I always wanted to be part of that because, you know, it's defending the place I love, the people I love. So now I feel that I've done my portion in defending this generation, and my kids will also be the defenders in the next generation, God willing. Thank God I was able to be part of it and continue to be part of it. So now that I've gotten out of the IDF, my plan is to bring cattle from the States, build up a farm, get married out here so that my family can continue and help out this nation. In the long shot, build a community and have even more families that have the same dreams or the same calling from God. There's definitely something happening. Everybody's feeling it, whether it's in Europe or whether it's in the States. People my age, the younger kids, you know, especially a lot of kids in college are getting a lot of, you know, hate. There's a lot of anti-Israel in it. It's definitely breeding a new love and a new calling for people to come to Israel. There's been an abundance of people from places where they felt comfortable to come out to start a new life out here. There's something out there. There's something in the air that's changed. It's definitely having a big effect on kids coming and wanting to join the IDF or coming to live in Israel itself and, you know, get her done. Israel is, to me, my everything, my dream, my hope, my future, my family's future. And God willing, all that will come true the way it should be and the way it will be. I am Jonathan Rosenberg, and I am Israel.
In the times of the Bible, the promised land of milk and honey was Judea and Samaria. And the greatest symbol of this promise was the vineyard. For centuries, these regions were covered with vibrant, fertile grapevines. But after the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Romans uprooted the vines and took them to Italy. For nearly 2,000 years, no vineyards existed on these mountains. But in the late 1990s, a few Jewish men came here with a goal to change that. Men like Yaakov Berg.
2,000 years ago, Israel known like the best wine country in the ancient world. The Roman Caesars, the Greeks, they brought their best wine, not from Italy, not from France. They brought it from here, from Israel. But for 2,000 years, the land was desert. It was impossible to grow something on those lands. And actually a lot of people tried and they couldn't succeed. I was born in Russia and I came to Israel when I was 3 years old. It was always my father's dream to touch the land, to grow something. You know, if you will ask my father, do you believe that your son will own a vineyard or a winery in Israel back then in Russia? I mean, he will cry or laugh, but for sure he's not going to believe to that. I remember when we started to plant the vineyards, everything it was rock. We need to drill into the rock in order to plant the vines. Everybody says, all the experts says, it's not going to work. Nothing will grow here. I don't think it's something that we can really understand. It's not that we changed the land, it's not that we brought a new soil or something like that. The land really came back to herself. It's like a dead man that came back to life.
The grapes Yaakov harvests to create his wines come from very special places. Elon Moreh, where God made his promise to Abraham. The Mount of Blessing, where Joshua said, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant rested. The harvesters who pick these grapes are neither Israeli nor Jewish. Each year, hundreds of Christian volunteers from around the world travel to Israel to prune the vines and harvest the grapes of Jewish farmers in Judea and Samaria at no cost to the farmers.
The Bible promises three main things. First of all, that the Jewish people will come back to their homeland. Second, that the land will come back to us. And from the moment that we came back, it's become a heaven. The third thing that many people really forgot, they don't see it, but the Bible talks about it many times, all over, that the entire world will come and will participate and will try to help. It's unbelievable. When I see it, I'm crying. The fact that we came back here, okay, but why? Somebody that lives so far away, thousands of kilometers from here, would like to know what's going on, would like to support, would like to be with us, that we will walk together, you know. I think this is the biggest miracle that God gave us in, I don't know, the last 20, 30 years. Everybody that will come to Israel, touch the land and touch the people, it will change his life. Each one of us looking for something deeper than just the regular life. I believe and I feel and I know that in Israel, maybe it's the best place on earth to really feel it, to understand it. It's easier than all the rest of the world. To me, Israel, it's the best proof God exists and still acting in our world. I don't think you can find a better proof. I'm Yaakov Berg, and I am Israel.